The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dahlia Monroe's Brooklyn apartment, casting long shadows across her pristine white design desk. She adjusted her sophisticated glasses, a nervous habit she'd developed over years of client meetings as she reviewed the proposal that could change everything. The opportunity to redesign the interior of a major tech company's Manhattan branch office wasn't just another project. It was her chance to finally establish herself among New York's elite designers. "Mom, Theo took my science project again," Liam's voice carried from the kitchen, followed by the familiar sound of running feet and muffled giggles. Dahlia closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. The sweet floral notes of her daisy perfume helped center her thoughts. "Boys, please, 5 minutes, that's all I need." She stood up, her high-waisted jeans and cream silk blouse reflecting in the mirror as she made her way to the kitchen. The sight that greeted her was all too familiar. Theo, grinning mischievously, holding Liam's carefully crafted solar system model just out of his twin's reach, while Liam's blue eyes filled with frustrated tears. Theodore Noah Monroe. Dahlia's voice carried that particular tone that both boys knew meant business. "Put your brother's project down. Now." Theo's smile faltered slightly as he lowered the model. "I just wanted to see if Saturn's rings would spin," he mumbled, adjusting his bright red baseball cap. Liam quickly reclaimed his project, checking for any damage. His oversized navy hoodie made him look smaller than usual as he hunched protectively over his work. "You always break things," he accused quietly. Dahlia's heart squeezed. 7 years of single motherhood had taught her the delicate balance between mediator and protector. "Theo, we've talked about respecting other people's things, and Liam, honey, sometimes sharing can be fun too." The boys' matching blue eyes, so painfully similar to their father's, looked up at her with different expressions. Theo's bright with unspoken adventures, Liam's deep with careful observation. The sight still caught her off guard sometimes, how they could be identical yet so completely different. "Now, I need you both to listen carefully," Dahlia continued, kneeling to their level. "Mrs. Anderson will be here in 20 minutes to take you to school. I have a very important meeting in Manhattan today, but I promise I'll make mac and cheese tonight. Grandma's recipe." "With extra cheese?" Theo bounced on his toes, previous mischief forgotten. "With extra cheese," Dahlia confirmed, smoothing down his perpetually messy blonde hair. "And maybe we can watch Toy Story later?" she added, catching Liam's small smile. The morning routine continued with practiced efficiency. Backpacks checked, lunchboxes distributed, faces wiped, and last-minute hugs exchanged. As Mrs. Anderson, their elderly neighbor and occasional caretaker, arrived right on schedule, Dahlia felt the familiar twist of guilt that came with being a working mother. "Be good, my loves," she called after them, watching as their blonde heads disappeared down the hallway, Theo chattering excitedly while Liam walked with measured steps beside him. Back in her apartment, Dahlia allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Her fingers traced the edge of her design portfolio, mind wandering to the meeting ahead. TechVision Solutions was a rising star in the tech industry, and landing this contract could secure her children's future. The irony of fate wasn't lost on her, that this opportunity might lead her straight back to the man she'd spent 7 years avoiding. Landslide played softly from her phone's speaker, Stevie Nicks' haunting voice echoing her inner turmoil. "Well, I've been afraid of changing 'cause I've built my life around you." Dahlia shook her head, silencing the music. She couldn't afford to dwell on the past, not today. She gathered her materials, checked her appearance one last time, adjusting her dark hair and touching up her subtle makeup, and headed for the door. The subway ride to Manhattan felt longer than usual, each stop bringing her closer to a possibility she'd refused to consider, running into Larkin Hayes. She'd Googled him, of course. Who hadn't? His rise in the tech industry was legendary, transforming a small startup into one of New York's most innovative companies. The photos she'd seen showed him exactly as she remembered, only sharper, more polished. The young dreamer from Boston had become exactly what he'd always wanted to be. TechVision's headquarters loomed before her, a gleaming tower of glass and steel reaching toward the clouds. Dahlia straightened her shoulders, channeling the strength that had carried her through single motherhood, through building her business from scratch, through every moment she'd wanted to break down but couldn't afford to. The elevator ride to the 47th floor was silent, giving her time to rehearse her presentation one last time. The receptionist directed her to Conference Room A, where her potential clients awaited. Dahlia reached for the door handle, then paused, adjusting her glasses one final time. She pushed open the door with practiced confidence, her portfolio clutched like a shield. "Good morning. I'm Dahlia Monroe from Monroe Interior Design." The words died in her throat. Sitting at the head of the conference table, looking as stunned as she felt, was Larkin Hayes. His blue eyes, the same eyes she saw every morning in her son's faces, locked with hers. He slowly stood, his tall frame casting a shadow across the polished table. The familiar gesture of running his hand across his closely trimmed beard betrayed his shock. "Dahlia," he breathed, her name falling from his lips like a forgotten prayer. The scent of his Bleu de Chanel cologne hit her senses, bringing with it a flood of memories she'd fought so hard to suppress. Memories of stolen kisses in Boston rain, of dreams shared over late-night coffee, of the last morning she'd seen him, before she'd discovered she was carrying his children and made the decision that would alter all their lives. Time seemed to freeze as they stared at each other, 7 years of unspoken words hanging in the air between them. Dahlia's hand instinctively went to her glasses, adjusting them even though they didn't need it. In that moment she could almost hear her grandmother's voice. "Destiny has a funny way of bringing back what belongs to us." The other executives in the room faded into background noise as Larkin took a step forward, his expression shifting from shock to something more complex. Hurt, anger, and underneath it all, a flicker of the same electric connection that had drawn them together all those years ago. "Please," he gestured to an empty chair, his voice carefully controlled. "Tell us about your vision for the project." Dahlia moved on autopilot, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she took her seat. As she opened her portfolio, her hands steady despite her internal chaos, one thought echoed through her mind. How long could she keep the secret of their sons from the man sitting across from her? And more importantly, what would happen when he discovered the truth? The presentation began, but both knew this was more than a simple business meeting. This was the beginning of a story that had started 7 years ago, a story of love, loss, secrets, and the possibility of redemption. As Dahlia started to speak about design concepts and spatial flow, she could feel Larkin's intense gaze on her, studying her as if trying to piece together the years they'd lost. The morning sun continued its journey across the Manhattan skyline, illuminating two people whose paths had once diverged but now, by some twist of fate or destiny, had converged once again. And somewhere in Brooklyn, two blue-eyed boys went about their school day, unaware that their world was about to change forever. Larkin Hayes stood at his office window, staring out at the Manhattan skyline without really seeing it. His fingers absently traced the rim of his coffee cup, now cold and forgotten. The morning's encounter with Dahlia had shaken him more than he cared to admit. 7 years. 7 years of building his empire of carefully constructed control, threatened to crumble at the sight of those honey-colored eyes behind those familiar glasses. "Sir?" His assistant's voice barely registered. "The board is waiting for your decision on the interior design proposals." He turned, adjusting his cufflinks, a nervous tic he'd developed over years of high-stakes meetings. "Cancel the other interviews. Monroe Interior Design gets the contract. But sir, we haven't even reviewed the other—" "Just do it." He cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. Once alone again, he loosened his tie, the weight of the morning's meeting settling heavily on his shoulders. Across town, Dahlia sat in her favorite cafe in Brooklyn, her hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea. Her laptop displayed the email she'd been staring at for the past 10 minutes, a contract offer from Tech Vision Solutions. The figure made her breath catch. It was more than generous, it was life-changing. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Anderson. "The boys are asking for pizza tonight." Theo's exact words. "Mom promised extra cheese." A smile tugged at her lips despite her tumultuous thoughts. She'd forgotten about her mac and cheese promise in the chaos of the day. Before she could respond, another message appeared on her screen, this one making her heart stop. "Larkin Hayes, we need to talk. Dinner. Tonight. The River Cafe, 8 p.m. It wasn't a question. Dahlia's fingers hovered over her phone. She could feel the walls she'd carefully built beginning to crack. One dinner. One conversation. What harm could it do? But deep down she knew. Everything could change with a single word, a single look that might betray her secret. She called Mrs. Anderson, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Would you mind keeping the boys overnight?" Something came up with the new contract. Back in his office, Larkin paced, his Bleu de Chanel cologne mixing with the leather scent of his furniture. The morning's presentation played on repeat in his mind, but it wasn't the design concepts he was focusing on. It was the way Dahlia's hand had trembled slightly when she'd opened her portfolio, the familiar way she'd adjusted her glasses when nervous, the slight catch in her voice when their eyes met. His phone rang, his mother calling from Boston. He let it go to voicemail. Eleanor Hayes had always had an uncanny ability to sense when his life was about to spiral out of control. Right now, he couldn't handle her particular brand of maternal insight. As evening approached, Dahlia stood in her bedroom, surrounded by discarded outfits. She finally settled on a navy midi dress that made her feel both professional and protected. The boys' laughter echoed from the living room where they were playing with Mrs. Anderson. "Mom," Theo's voice carried through the apartment. "Can we show Mrs. Anderson our new video game?" "Of course, sweetheart," she called back, her heart clenching at the thought of what this dinner could mean for their future. She walked into the living room, taking in the sight of her sons. Theo sprawled on the floor with his favorite controller. Liam curled up on the couch with a book. "You look pretty," Liam observed quietly, his blue eyes, so like his father's, studying her with that penetrating gaze that sometimes made her wonder if he could see right through her. "Thank you, baby." She kissed the top of his head, breathing in the familiar scent of his shampoo. "Be good for Mrs. Anderson, okay? Both of you. Will you be home for breakfast?" Theo asked, looking up from his game. "Of course. We'll have pancakes with extra blueberries," she promised, knowing it was Liam's favorite. The River Cafe was exactly as Dahlia remembered it from years ago. Elegant, romantic, with stunning views of the Brooklyn Bridge. Larkin was already there when she arrived, standing at the bar in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. The years had been kind to him. Success had only enhanced his natural magnetism. He turned as if sensing her presence, those piercing blue eyes finding her immediately. For a moment neither spoke, letting the weight of 7 years of silence hang between them. "You look beautiful," he finally said, his voice carrying that slight Boston accent that emerged when his emotions ran high. "Thank you." She accepted the glass of wine he offered, noting he remembered her preference for red. They were seated at a corner table with a view of the water, the city lights reflecting like stars on its surface. A waiter appeared with menus, but neither paid attention. "Why did you leave?" Larkin asked without preamble, his hands clasped tightly around his water glass. "One morning you were there, and then nothing. No note, no explanation, just gone." Dahlia took a careful sip of wine, buying time. "It's complicated, Larkin. Uncomplicated." His tone was sharp, but she could hear the hurt beneath the anger. "I deserve that much." "You were focused on your dreams," she began carefully. "The startup was everything to you. You were going to change the world, remember? And you didn't think you fit into that dream?" He leaned forward, his intensity almost palpable. "You were part of that dream, Dahlia. All of it. The success, the future. It was supposed to be ours." The waiter returned, and they ordered automatically, barely glancing at the menus. As soon as they were alone again, Larkin continued. "I looked for you. Everywhere. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment empty. It was like you'd vanished into thin air." Dahlia's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. "I made a choice," she said softly. "The right choice at the time." "The right choice?" His laugh was bitter. "Do you know what it did to me? Finding your ring on the nightstand, no explanation, no goodbye." The memory of that morning hit her hard, carefully placing her engagement ring beside his sleeping form, her heart breaking with each silent step toward the door. She'd been sick that morning, the first hint of the pregnancy she'd discovered 2 weeks later. "I'm sorry," she whispered, meaning it more than he could know, "but we can't change the past." "No," he agreed, his eyes never leaving her face. "But we can be honest about it. What really happened, Dahlia? What was so terrible that you had to disappear completely?" The weight of her secret pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Outside, a fairy's horn sounded, long and mournful. She thought of her sons at home. Their blue eyes, their blonde hair, all the little mannerisms that reminded her daily of the man sitting across from her. "Larkin, she started, but was interrupted by his phone buzzing insistently. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. "I have to take this. Give me 2 minutes." He stood, already answering the call as he walked toward the restaurant's entrance. Alone at the table, Dahlia closed her eyes, remembering another dinner 7 years ago. They'd sat at this same restaurant, young and in love, planning their future. Larkin had just secured his first major investor for his startup, and she'd just landed her first design client. Everything had seemed possible then. Now, watching him pace outside the restaurant window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights, she wondered if she'd made the right choice all those years ago. The secret of their sons weighed heavily on her conscience, But the fear of losing them, of disrupting their carefully constructed world, was paralyzing. Larkin returned to the table, his expression troubled. "There's an emergency at the office. I have to go." He threw down his credit card without looking at the bill. "But this conversation isn't over, Dahlia, not by a long shot." She stood, gathering her purse. "Larkin, wait." He turned back, and for a moment she saw past the successful CEO to the young man she'd fallen in love with in Boston. "7 years ago, you made a choice for both of us. This time, I get to make some choices too." As she watched him stride away, Dahlia's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Anderson. "The boys are asleep." Theo insisted on wearing his new superhero pajamas, and Liam finished his book. They both said goodnight to your picture. Tears pricked at her eyes as she read the message. Everything she'd done, every choice she'd made, had been for them. But as she looked out at the Brooklyn Bridge spanning the dark water, she wondered if it was time for the truth to finally come to light. The night air was cool against her skin as she stepped outside, the city's endless symphony of sounds surrounding her. Somewhere in this vast metropolis, Larkin Hayes was heading back to his office, unaware that he had 2 sons sleeping peacefully in Brooklyn. And somewhere in her heart, the walls she'd built to protect her secret were beginning to crumble. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear over Brooklyn, the kind of autumn day that painted the city in shades of gold. Dahlia sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by design sketches for the Tech Vision project, while Theo and Liam built an elaborate fort out of blankets and cushions nearby. "Mom, can we have pancakes?" Liam's voice drifted from behind a wall of sheets, followed by the sound of Theo's enthusiastic agreement. "In a minute, sweetie." Dahlia's attention was fixed on her laptop screen, where an email from Larkin's assistant detailed the project timeline. 3 months. She would be working directly with him for 3 months. "But you promised blueberry pancakes." Theo emerged from the fort, his blonde hair sticking up in all directions. "Remember? Extra blueberries for Liam?" The guilt of her forgotten promise from yesterday hit her. "You're right, I did promise. Come on, my little architects, let's make breakfast." In the kitchen, Dahlia watched her sons help with the pancake preparation. Theo insisted on measuring the ingredients himself, while Liam meticulously arranged blueberries in perfect circles on each cooking pancake. The morning sunlight caught their hair, turning it to spun gold, just like their father's. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text. Larkin again. "Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. We need to finalize the contract details." "Mom, you're burning the pancake." Theo's voice snapped her back to reality. The smell of slightly charred batter filled the kitchen. "Sorry, boys." She quickly flipped the pancake, trying to focus on the present moment rather than tomorrow's meeting. "Are you okay, Mom?" Liam asked quietly, his blue eyes studying her with that unsettling perceptiveness he possessed. "You seem worried." "I'm fine, honey." She smiled, ruffling his hair. "Just thinking about a big project." "Is it the one with the tall building?" Theo asked through a mouthful of pancake. "The one where you met the man in the fancy suit?" Dahlia froze. "What do you mean?" "I saw his picture on your computer," Theo continued innocently. "He looks important, like a superhero in a business suit." Liam looked up from his plate. "Is he why you were dressed up last night?" Sometimes Dahlia forgot how observant her children could be. "Yes, he's the client for my new project. It's a very important job for Mommy's business. Will we get to see the building?" Theo's eyes lit up with excitement. "I bet it has awesome elevators." Before Dahlia could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Eleanor Hayes, Larkin's mother. Her heart stopped. "Boys, go finish your breakfast in the fort," she managed to say calmly. "Consider it a special treat." Once they were gone, she stared at the phone until it stopped ringing. How had Eleanor gotten her number? After 7 years of carefully maintaining distance, was her carefully constructed world about to unravel? A voicemail notification appeared. With trembling fingers, Dahlia pressed play. "Dahlia?" Eleanor's familiar Boston accent filled her ear. "I know it's been a long time, dear, but Larkin told me about your meeting. I think we need to talk. There are things you should know. Please call me back." The message ended, leaving Dahlia feeling like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Eleanor Hayes had always been more perceptive than her son, more attuned to the undercurrents of emotion that Larkin sometimes missed in his drive for success. "Mom," Theo's voice carried from the living room. "Can we go to the park? Please?" The normalcy of the request anchored her. "Yes, let's do that. Get your shoes on." At Madison Square Park, Dahlia sat on a bench watching her sons play. Theo was fearlessly scaling the jungle gym while Liam sat in the shade, deeply absorbed in drawing patterns in the sand. Other parents milled about, coffee cups in hand, enjoying the weekend morning. Mind if I join you? Dahlia's head snapped up. Larkin stood there, dressed casually in jeans and a gray cashmere sweater, looking as surprised to see her as she was to see him. I run here sometimes on weekends, he explained, gesturing to his athletic shoes. I didn't expect. Mom, watch this. Theo's voice rang out across the playground. Both adults turned to look as the boy performed a daring leap from the jungle gym. Dahlia's heart leaped into her throat, but Theo landed safely, grinning triumphantly. His blue eyes, so like Larkin's, sparkled with achievement. She felt Larkin stiffen beside her, his gaze fixed on the boys. She could almost see the wheels turning in his mind as he looked from Theo to Liam, taking in their features, their coloring, their age. Dahlia. His voice was barely a whisper. How old are they? The moment she'd dreaded for 7 years had arrived in the most mundane of settings, a sunny Saturday morning in a Manhattan park. Before she could respond, Theo came bounding over. Mom, can I have a quarter for the bubble machine? Oh, hello. He noticed Larkin, his face lighting up with recognition. You're the man from Mom's computer, the one from the tall building. Larkin's face had gone pale. His eyes moved from Theo to Dahlia, then back to where Liam sat in the sand, now watching them intently. 7, Dahlia said quietly, answering his earlier question. They're 7 years old. The impact of those words hit Larkin like a physical blow. She watched as he did the math in his head, as realization dawned in his eyes, followed by a storm of emotions. Shock, anger, hurt, and something else. Wonder? Mom? Liam had approached silently, standing slightly behind his mother's bench. Can we go home? I don't feel good. Dahlia stood quickly, gathering their belongings. Yes, sweetie, we can go. Dahlia, wait. Larkin reached for her arm, but she stepped back. Not here, she whispered. Not in front of them. They're mine, aren't they? His voice cracked slightly. They're my sons. Theo looked between them, confusion clouding his features. Mom? Tomorrow, Dahlia said firmly, taking both boys' hands. We'll talk tomorrow. As she hurried away with the twins, she could feel Larkin's gaze burning into her back. The truth was out now, released into the world like a bird from a long-closed cage. There would be no going back. Back at home, Dahlia went through the motions of their Saturday routine, lunch, quiet time, games, all while her mind raced with the implications of the morning's encounter. The boys seemed subdued, picking up on her tension. Mom? Liam asked during dinner, pushing his food around his plate. Who was that man at the park? Dahlia looked at her sons, these beautiful, precious boys who were about to have their world turned upside down. Someone from Mommy's past, she said carefully. Someone very important. He looked at us funny, Theo observed, unusually serious, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Is he why Grandma Eleanor called? Liam asked, surprising Dahlia with his awareness. She set down her fork, realizing it was time for at least part of the truth. Yes, honey, he's connected to Grandma Eleanor. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Larkin. We have a lot to talk about, but know this. I want to know them. I want to be part of their lives. You can't keep them from me anymore. Dahlia closed her eyes, remembering the look of wonder on Larkin's face as he'd watched Theo play. Maybe, just maybe, this revelation could lead to something beautiful rather than destructive. But first they would have to navigate the stormy waters of truth, forgiveness, and 7 years of lost time. Outside, the sun was setting over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, a family stood on the brink of change, their future as uncertain as the shifting colors of the evening sky. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected thunderstorm, dark clouds hanging low over Manhattan's skyline. Larkin Hayes stood at his office window, watching lightning split the sky. He hadn't slept since Saturday's revelation in the park. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. 2 boys with his eyes, his hair, his features, his sons. The bottle of Macallan on his desk remained untouched, though he'd been tempted more than once during his sleepless nights. Instead, he'd spent hours scrolling through old photos on his phone, studying his own childhood pictures, seeing the unmistakable resemblance. Sir? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Monroe is here. Larkin straightened his tie, a gesture more about gathering strength than fixing his appearance. Send her in. Dahlia entered, looking as composed as ever in a charcoal pencil skirt and cream blouse, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands as she adjusted her glasses. Before we start, she said, closing the door behind her, I need to know your intentions. My intentions? Thunder rattled the windows, matching the storm in his voice. That's rich coming from the woman who hid my children from me for 7 years. Lower your voice, Dahlia warned, though they were alone. This isn't just about you and me anymore. No, it's about Theo and Liam too, my sons. The words felt foreign yet right on his tongue. God, I don't even know their full names. Theodore Noah Monroe and Liam Alexander Monroe, Dahlia said softly. Theo was born 4 minutes before Liam. Larkin sank into his chair, the weight of these simple facts hitting him hard. Tell me everything. No more secrets, Dahlia. I need to know my children. She took a seat across from him, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. Theo loves superheroes and pizza. He can't sit still for more than 5 minutes unless he's playing video games. Liam, her voice softened with affection. Liam is our quiet observer. He reads everything he can get his hands on and makes the most amazing blueberry pancakes with me on weekends. Why? The question burst from him, raw and painful. Why didn't you tell me? You were on the verge of everything you'd ever wanted. Dahlia's voice cracked slightly. The startup was taking off, investors were lining up. You were working 20-hour days, living on coffee and dreams. When I found out I was pregnant, you thought I'd choose the company over you? Over them? The hurt in his voice was palpable. Wouldn't you have? She met his gaze steadily. Be honest, Larkin. 7 years ago, if I'd told you I was pregnant with twins, what would you have done? The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside Larkin's office, time seemed to stand still as he confronted her question. I had a right to know, he finally said, to make that choice myself. You're right. The admission seemed to cost her. I was young, scared, and probably wrong, but I can't change the past. What matters now is how we move forward. Larkin stood abruptly, pacing the length of his office. I want to meet them, properly. Not as your client, but as their father. It's not that simple. The hell it isn't. He spun to face her. They're my sons, Dahlia. I've missed 7 years of their lives. First steps, first words, first everything. I won't miss another day. And how do you propose we tell them? Dahlia challenged. They're 7 years old, Larkin. Their whole world is about to turn upside down. We need to be careful. Before he could respond, his office door burst open. Eleanor Hayes stood there, elegant as ever in her designer suit, her expression a mix of fury and determination. Mother, Larkin started, this isn't the time. I think it's exactly the time. Eleanor cut him off, closing the door firmly behind her. When were you going to tell me I have grandchildren? Dahlia paled. Eleanor, Save it. Eleanor's voice was sharp but not unkind. 7 years, Dahlia. 7 years of birthdays, Christmases, first days of school, all stolen from us. That's enough, Larkin intervened, seeing Dahlia's distress. This isn't helping. Eleanor took a deep breath, visibly composing herself. You're right. What's done is done. What matters now is making this right. She turned to Dahlia. Tell me about them, please. Something in Eleanor's plea seemed to break through Dahlia's defenses. She reached for her phone, hands shaking slightly as she pulled up a photo. This was taken last month at their school science fair, she said, turning the screen toward them. Liam won first place for his solar system model. Theo added aliens to his project at the last minute because he thought it needed more excitement. Eleanor moved closer, her breath catching as she studied the image. They look just like you did at that age, she told Larkin softly, especially around the eyes. Larkin stared at the photo, drinking in every detail. Theo's wide grin, so full of mischief. Liam's quieter smile, proud but reserved. Both of them holding their projects. Their blue eyes, his eyes, bright with achievement. I have a lunch meeting with the board in 20 minutes, he said suddenly, checking his watch. Mother, could you? I'll see myself out. Eleanor nodded, understanding. But at the door she paused. Dahlia, would you join me for tea this afternoon? There's a lovely place near Central Park. Dahlia hesitated, then nodded. The boys have after-school activities until 5. Once Eleanor left, the tension in the room shifted. Larkin returned to his desk, pulling out a legal pad. I want visitation rights, he said without preamble. Shared custody eventually. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork. Stop. Dahlia's voice was firm. This isn't a corporate takeover, Larkin. These are children, our children. We do this right or we don't do it at all. He looked up, ready to argue, but something in her expression made him pause. What do you suggest? We take it slow. Let me talk to them first, prepare them. Then, maybe dinner? At my place where they feel safe and comfortable. When? Thursday? She adjusted her glasses, a gesture he now recognized as nervousness. They don't have activities, and it's pizza night. Theo's favorite. Larkin nodded, already reaching for his phone to clear his schedule. Thursday. The word felt like a promise. As Dahlia gathered her things to leave, he called after her. The design contract. I still want you for the project. This doesn't change that. She paused at the door. Are you sure that's wise? Probably not, he admitted. But right now, I'll take any excuse to be near them. Near you. The last words slipped out before he could stop them. Dahlia's hand tightened on the doorknob, but she didn't turn around. Thursday, she repeated softly, and then she was gone. Larkin sat in his silent office, the storm outside finally beginning to fade. On his desk, his phone displayed the photo of his sons, at their science fair. 7 years of missed moments couldn't be reclaimed, but Thursday would be the first of many new memories. He opened his bottom drawer, pulling out an old engagement ring box he'd kept all these years. Inside, nestled in black velvet, lay the ring Dahlia had left behind that morning 7 years ago. He'd never had the heart to return it or give it away. I have sons, he whispered to the empty room, letting the reality of those words sink in. Outside his window, the clouds began to part, letting streams of sunlight pierce through the darkness, a promise of clarity after the storm. Dahlia sat cross-legged on her living room floor Wednesday night, surrounded by photo albums she hadn't opened in years. The boys were asleep, their soft breathing audible through the partially open bedroom door. Tomorrow was Thursday, pizza night, and everything would change. Her tea with Eleanor Hayes had been surprisingly gentle. The older woman's initial anger had melted into something softer, more understanding, as Dahlia shared stories and photos of the twins' early years. They have his temperament, Eleanor had observed, studying a picture of toddler Theo mid-tantrum while Liam watched disapprovingly. Larkin was the same at that age, all passion or precision, no in-between. Now, looking at the same photo, Dahlia could see what Eleanor meant. She'd always attributed their personalities to nature versus nurture, but seeing Larkin again had highlighted just how much of him lived in their sons. Her phone buzzed with a text from Larkin. What's their favorite kind of pizza? The simple question made her smile despite her anxiety. Theo loves pepperoni. Liam prefers margarita with extra basil. 3 dots appeared as he typed, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, they're so different. Always have been, she replied, then added, Theo's allergic to shellfish, like you, and Liam has your perfect pitch. He can identify any note on the piano. The phone rang immediately. Tell me more. Larkin's voice was soft, hungry for information. Everything. Anything. Dahlia leaned back against the couch, closing her eyes. What do you want to know? Their first words? Theo's was more, very on-brand for him. Liam's was book, though it sounded more like buck at first. She could hear him taking notes, the scratch of pen on paper carrying through the phone. First steps? Liam walked first, at 11 months. Theo waited until 13 months but went straight to running. Broke a lamp his first day mobile. They talked for hours, Dahlia sharing milestone after milestone while Larkin absorbed every detail. Around midnight, a small voice interrupted them. Mom? Liam stood in his doorway clutching his favorite book. I had a bad dream. I have to go, Dahlia told Larkin softly. Tomorrow at 6? I'll be there. He paused. Thank you, Dahlia. For tonight. For sharing them with me. After hanging up, Dahlia went to Liam, gathering him close. Want to tell me about your dream? He shook his head, burrowing into her side. Can you just sit with me for a while? In his bed, surrounded by his beloved books and star charts, Liam looked smaller than his 7 years. Mom, he whispered as she stroked his hair. Is something going to happen tomorrow? Dahlia's heart skipped. Why do you ask that, sweetie? You've been different since the park, since we saw that man. His blue eyes, Larkin's eyes, studied her face. Is he going to change things? Sometimes Dahlia forgot just how perceptive her quiet son could be. Some changes can be good, she said carefully. Remember when you were scared to start 2nd grade, but now you love your science class? Liam considered this. But Theo wasn't scared. He just ran right in. That's because you and your brother handle things differently. And that's okay. She kissed his forehead. Whatever happens, I promise we'll handle it together. The next morning dawned clear and crisp. Dahlia went through the motions of their usual routine: breakfast, school drop-off, work, while her mind raced with preparations for the evening. She'd ordered pizzas from their favorite place, bought Theo's preferred soda and Liam's sparkling water with lime. Every detail had to be perfect. At the office, she could barely focus on the tech vision designs. Her phone buzzed periodically with texts from Larkin. Should I bring anything? What time do they usually go to bed? Do they like chocolate? I remember you saying Liam prefers vanilla. Around noon, another text arrived. This one from Eleanor. I know you want to do this your way, but please remember they're his children too. He's terrified of making a mistake. Dahlia stared at the message for a long time, remembering the young man she'd fallen in love with in Boston. Brilliant, driven, but sometimes paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. Success had masked that vulnerability, but she could still see it in the way he obsessed over every detail about the twins. At 3 o'clock, she left work early to pick up the boys from school. As they walked home, Theo chattering about his day while Liam quietly held her hand, she knew it was time. Boys, she said once they were home, settled on their favorite spot on the living room floor. We need to talk about something important. Theo looked up from his game controller, sensing her serious tone. Liam set aside his book, those observant eyes fixed on her face. Remember the man we met at the park? Mr. Hayes? She took a deep breath. He's your father. The silence that followed was deafening. Theo's controller slipped from his hands. Forgotten. Liam's fingers twisted in the hem of his oversized sweater. But you said our dad had to go away. Theo finally spoke, his voice small. You said he had important work. I know, baby. Dahlia struggled to find the right words. I made mistakes. Grown-up mistakes that seemed right at the time but weren't. Your father, he didn't know about you. But now he does. And he wants very much to know you both. Is that why he's coming for pizza night? Liam asked quietly. Dahlia shouldn't have been surprised that he'd figured it out. Yes, he wants to meet you properly. To be part of your lives if you'll let him. Does he like superheroes? Theo's question was so unexpected that Dahlia almost laughed. I don't know, sweetie. But you can ask him tonight. Will he? Liam hesitated. Will he want us to call him Dad? Only if and when you're ready, Dahlia assured him. There's no rush for anything. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of activity. Theo changed his shirt 3 times, finally settling on his favorite Iron Man t-shirt. Liam organized and reorganized his bookshelf, a nervous habit he'd developed early on. Dahlia fluttered between them, answering questions, offering reassurance, all while her own heart raced with anticipation. At 5:55, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she could see Larkin shifting nervously, adjusting his casual blazer. He'd dressed down from his usual business attire, wearing dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that matched their son's eyes. Behind her, she heard Theo's excited whisper to his brother, Do you think he'll like us? Liam's reply was too quiet to hear, but she saw him reach for his twin's hand, a gesture they'd shared since infancy. Taking a deep breath, Dahlia opened the door. Larkin stood there, holding a wrapped package in each hand, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. Hi, he said softly. Then his eyes moved past her to the 2 small figures standing in the living room. Hi, boys. And just like that, everything changed. Time seemed to stand still in the apartment's entryway. Larkin's eyes moved between the twins, taking in every detail. Theo in his Iron Man shirt practically bouncing with nervous energy, and Liam, half hidden behind his brother, wearing an oversized navy sweater that made him look even smaller than he was. I brought something for you both, Larkin said, his usual corporate confidence nowhere to be found. He held out the wrapped packages, 1 in each hand. Theo stepped forward first, bold as always. Are you really our dad? The direct question caught Larkin off guard. He knelt down to their level, still holding the gifts. Yes, I am. And I know this is all very sudden and probably confusing, but I'm very happy to finally meet you both properly. Liam's grip on his brother's sleeve tightened. Did you not want us before? The quiet question held all the weight of 7 years of absence. No, that's not. Larkin looked helplessly at Dahlia, who had moved to stand protectively near the boys. I didn't know about you. If I had, he took a deep breath. If I had known, I would have been here every single day. The doorbell chimed again. The pizza delivery. Dahlia moved to answer it, grateful for the momentary break in tension. Why don't we move to the living room? She suggested, carrying the boxes. Theo, can you help get the plates? The familiar routine of pizza night helped ease some of the awkwardness. Theo took charge of plate distribution, while Liam carefully arranged the napkins. Larkin watched their practiced movements, cataloging every detail. "Pepperoni for Theo," Dahlia announced, opening the first box. "Margarita with extra basil for Liam." "That's my favorite too," Larkin said, catching Liam's surprised glance. "The basil, I mean. Your grandmother, my mother, she grows her own herbs. We have a small herb garden on the windowsill," Liam offered quietly. "Mom lets me take care of the basil plants." "Can we open the presents now?" Theo interrupted, eyeing the packages that sat on the coffee table. Larkin nodded, pushing them forward. "The blue one is for Liam, the red for Theo." The boys unwrapped their gifts with contrasting styles, Theo tearing into his with enthusiasm, while Liam carefully undid each piece of tape. Inside each box was a state-of-the-art tablet, already loaded with apps and content specific to each boy's interests. For Theo, I included some coding games for kids. "I thought maybe we could learn to build our own superhero game together," Larkin explained, watching his son's eyes light up. "And Liam, yours has a complete digital library of age-appropriate books plus some interactive astronomy apps. Your mom mentioned you love space." "This is so cool," Theo exclaimed, already powering up his tablet. "Can you really make games?" "That's what my company does, among other things." Larkin smiled, relaxing slightly. "Maybe you'd like to see where I work sometime? The tall building?" Theo's eyes widened. "With the awesome elevators?" Liam was quietly exploring his tablet, his fingers tracing the constellations on the screen. "Thank you," he said softly, not looking up. Dahlia watched the interaction from her perch on the arm of the sofa, her heart doing complicated flips in her chest. Larkin had clearly done his research, choosing gifts that spoke directly to each boy's interests. "Mom said you had important work," Theo said between bites of pizza. "Was it making games?" Larkin's eyes met Dahlia's over the boys' heads. Yes, partly. I was building my company, but if I had known about you both, no work would have been more important." "Do you like superheroes?" Theo pressed on, warming to the conversation. "Iron Man is my favorite because he builds cool stuff. Like you. I was always more of a Captain America fan," Larkin admitted. "But Iron Man is pretty amazing too. That's what I keep telling Liam. He likes Spider-Man better." "Because Spider-Man is smart," Liam defended quietly. "He uses science to help people." "You know, I have some original comic books from when I was your age," Larkin offered. "They're at my mother's house in Boston. Maybe someday you'd like to see them." The mention of Boston made Dahlia tense slightly. Eleanor had already started hinting at having the boys visit, eager to make up for lost time. "Is that where you're from?" Liam asked, finally looking directly at Larkin. "Boston? Yes, I grew up there. That's where I met your mom, actually. We were both just starting out. Me with my company ideas, her with her design work. Mom's designs are the best," Theo declared loyally. "She made my room look like a superhero headquarters. And she put glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling," Liam added. "In real constellation patterns." Larkin smiled, picturing the scenes. "I'd love to see your rooms, if that's okay." The boys looked to Dahlia, who nodded. "Why don't you give him the tour?" Theo jumped up immediately, grabbing Larkin's hand without hesitation. "Come on, wait till you see my gaming setup." Liam followed more slowly, still clutching his new tablet. As they disappeared down the hallway, Dahlia could hear Theo's excited chatter mixing with Larkin's deeper responses. She began clearing the pizza boxes, trying to give them space while staying close enough to intervene if needed. Through the open doors, she could see Theo demonstrating his gaming system to an attentive Larkin, while Liam gradually moved closer, drawn in by their discussion of technology. "And this is my solar system model," Liam's voice carried suddenly, showing more animation than he had all evening. "It won first place at the science fair. It's incredible." Larkin's genuine amazement was clear. "You built this yourself?" "Mom helped with the hard parts, but I calculated all the orbital distances to scale." "He spent 3 weeks on the calculations," Dahlia added from the doorway, unable to resist sharing in her son's pride. The evening continued with a gentle ebb and flow of conversation, each revelation building small bridges across the 7-year gap. By the time bedtime approached, some of the initial tension had eased. "Will you come back?" Theo asked as Larkin prepared to leave, his directness once again cutting straight to the heart of things. "If you want me to," Larkin looked between both boys. "I'd like to be part of your lives, get to know you both better, but only if you're comfortable with that." Liam, who had been quiet for the past few minutes, spoke up. Maybe you could come to our school science exhibition next week. I'm doing a presentation on black holes. The invitation, small but significant, brought a smile to Larkin's face that transformed his entire expression. I wouldn't miss it for anything. After good nights were said and the boys were in bed, Larkin lingered in the entryway with Dahlia. They're amazing, he said softly. Absolutely amazing. You've done an incredible job with them. They make it easy, Dahlia replied. They're good boys. I want to do this right, Dahlia. Whatever happened between us, they deserve to have both parents in their lives. She nodded, adjusting her glasses. One step at a time. They need time to adjust, to trust that you'll be there. I will be, for all of it. Science fairs, superhero movies, everything. He paused at the door. Thank you for tonight, for giving me this chance. After he left, Dahlia checked on the boys one last time. They were both awake, sharing Theo's bed as they often did when processing big events. You okay? She asked softly. He's different than I imagined, Liam said thoughtfully, but in a good way. He knows how to make games, Theo added excitedly. Real games, Mom. Dahlia sat on the edge of their bed, gathering them both close. I know this is a big change. We'll take it slow, okay? You set the pace. Do you think he'll really come to the science exhibition? Liam's voice held equal parts hope and doubt. Yes, baby. I think he will. And for the first time, Dahlia truly believed it. The look in Larkin's eyes when he talked with their sons had told her everything she needed to know. He was all in, ready to be the father they deserved. Later, alone in her room, Dahlia found herself looking at old photos on her phone. She had hundreds of pictures of the boys, documenting every milestone, every precious moment. With trembling fingers, she created a new album and sent it to Larkin's number with a simple message. 7 years of memories. It's time you had them too. The reply came almost instantly. Thank you, I'll spend all night looking at these. They have your smile, you know, both of them. Outside her window, the Brooklyn night was alive with city lights, each one representing a story, a family, a moment in time. Tonight, in this corner of the city, a new chapter was beginning, not just for the twins, but for all of them. The week following the first dinner passed in a whirlwind of tentative steps forward and careful negotiations. Larkin had thrown himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to his business dealings, but not everything could be solved with careful planning and strategic thinking. Mr. Hayes is here again, Theo announced, spotting the familiar figure waiting outside their school. It was the third time that week Larkin had appeared at pickup time, each visit bringing a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Liam hung back slightly, watching as his brother raced ahead. He doesn't have to come every day, he muttered just loud enough for Dahlia to hear. Hey, champions, Larkin greeted them, his corporate attire slightly rumpled from a long day of meetings. I thought maybe we could get ice cream, if it's okay with your mom. Dahlia noticed the way he always looked to her for permission, trying to respect the boundaries she'd established over 7 years of sole parenting. Homework first, she reminded them, then ice cream. They settled into a nearby cafe, the boys spreading their schoolwork across the table while Larkin watched with fascination. Theo raced through his math problems, eager to get to his promised treat, while Liam methodically worked through his reading assignment. Need any help? Larkin offered, noting Theo's frustrated expression at a particularly challenging problem. It's division, Theo grumbled. I hate division. Here, let me show you a trick I learned when I was your age. Larkin pulled out his phone, opening the calculator app. Sometimes breaking big problems into smaller ones makes them easier to solve. Dahlia watched the interaction while reviewing design proposals for the Tech Vision project. The renovation was moving forward despite the personal complications, but every meeting with Larkin now carried an extra layer of tension. Mom? Liam's quiet voice drew her attention. Can I show Dad my black hole presentation? For practice? The word Dad hung in the air, used for the first time. Larkin's head snapped up, his eyes meeting Dahlia's over their sons' heads. The simple word seemed to shift something in the atmosphere. Of course, buddy, Larkin managed, his voice slightly rough. I'd love to see it. Liam pulled out his carefully prepared notes, complete with hand-drawn diagrams. As he began his explanation of event horizons and gravitational forces, his usual reserve melted away, replaced by genuine enthusiasm. That's incredible, Larkin praised when Liam finished. You really understand this stuff, don't you? He's the smartest kid in our grade, Theo declared proudly. Even if he is a space nerd. says the superhero geek, Liam shot back, but there was no malice in his tone. The peaceful moment was interrupted by Larkin's phone buzzing. His expression darkened as he read the message. I have to take this. It's the Tokyo office. He stepped away from the table, already shifting into CEO mode. Dahlia recognized the change immediately. It was the same intensity she'd seen 7 years ago, when his startup was just taking off. The same drive that had made her question whether there would be room in his life for a family. Is he leaving? Liam asked quietly, watching Larkin pace outside the cafe window. He's just working, honey. Sometimes grown-ups have to handle unexpected things. But when Larkin returned 10 minutes later, his demeanor had completely changed. The relaxed father was gone, replaced by the sharp-edged businessman. I'm sorry, but I have to go. There's a situation that needs my immediate attention. But you promised ice cream, Theo protested. I know, buddy. I'll make it up to you. I promise. Maybe we can get double scoops next time? Dahlia saw the familiar disappointment settle over both boys' faces, the same look they'd worn countless times when plans fell through or expectations weren't met. It's fine, Liam said flatly, already packing up his presentation. We're used to it. The words hit Larkin like a physical blow. He reached for his son, but Liam stepped back, pressing closer to Dahlia. Liam, you should go, Dahlia intervened, her voice gentle but firm. They understand about work emergencies. But the look in her eyes told him they both knew better. This was exactly what she'd feared 7 years ago, that his work would always come first. After Larkin left, the walk home was quieter than usual. Even Theo's endless chatter was subdued. At home, the boys disappeared into their rooms, leaving Dahlia alone with her thoughts. Her phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. How are things going? Before she could respond, another message appeared. This one from Larkin. I screwed up, didn't I? The boys emerged for dinner, subdued but not completely withdrawn. Theo picked at his food, unusually quiet, while Liam read a book at the table, a habit Dahlia usually discouraged but decided to allow tonight. Can we call Grandma Eleanor? Theo asked suddenly. She said we could whenever we wanted. The request surprised Dahlia. Eleanor had been carefully diplomatic in her interactions with the boys, not wanting to overwhelm them, but they'd taken to her immediately during her brief visit last weekend. Of course, Dahlia agreed, reaching for her phone. As she dialed, she heard the familiar chime of an incoming email. The TechVision project timeline had been updated, requiring her presence at more frequent meetings. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her warm Boston accent filling the speaker. Hello, darlings. How are my favorite grandsons? We're your only grandsons, Liam pointed out logically, but he was smiling. Dad had to leave early today, Theo announced without preamble. For work stuff. There was a slight pause before Eleanor responded. Yes, your father's work can be very demanding. But you know what? When he was your age, he used to get so excited about new projects that he'd forget everything else. Once he missed his own birthday party because he was building a computer in the garage. This detail caught both boys' attention. Really? Theo asked. Did he finish the computer? Oh yes, and it worked perfectly. That's just how his mind works. When he's focused on something, everything else fades away. But that doesn't mean he cares any less about the other things in his life. After the call ended, Dahlia found herself thinking about Eleanor's words. She remembered the young Larkin she'd fallen in love with, so passionate about his dreams that he'd sometimes forget to eat or sleep. It was what had drawn her to him initially, that pure, unfiltered dedication. Her phone buzzed again. Larkin. Tokyo situation handled. Can we talk? Boys, she called out. Bedtime routine, please. Teeth brushed, pajamas on. Once they were settled in their rooms, she called Larkin back. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I handled that badly. You can't promise things if you're not sure you can follow through, she replied. They've had enough disappointment. I know, I want to be there for everything. Make up for lost time. You can't make up for lost time, Larkin. You can only move forward. But you have to decide what kind of father you want to be. There was a long pause. The science exhibition is still on for Friday? Yes, Liam's presenting at 2 p.m. I'll be there. Nothing. Not Tokyo, not any business deal will keep me away. I promise. After they hung up, Dahlia checked on the boys one last time. Theo was already asleep, his new tablet carefully placed on his nightstand. In Liam's room, she found him still awake, staring at his black hole presentation. Want to practice one more time? She offered. He shook his head. What if he doesn't come? Dahlia sat on the edge of his bed, running her fingers through his blonde hair, so like his father's. He'll be there. How do you know? Because he's learning too, honey. Learning how to be a father, how to balance everything. Sometimes people make mistakes while they're learning. Liam considered this. Like when Theo crashed his first bike because he was too excited to practice? Exactly like that. She kissed his forehead. Give him a chance to get it right. Later that night, as she reviewed the Tech Vision designs, Dahlia received one final text from Larkin. They told me that having everything means nothing if you don't have anyone to share it with. I didn't understand that until now. She looked at the family photo on her desk, taken long before Larkin knew of their existence, and thought about second chances, about learning curves, about the complicated dance of building a family from fragments of the past and hopes for the future. Outside, the city hummed with its nighttime rhythm, a reminder that life moved forward regardless of personal drama. But in this moment, in this apartment in Brooklyn, the future felt both terrifying and full of possibility. Friday morning dawned with an unexpected mix of sunshine and clouds over New York City. Dahlia watched Liam meticulously check his presentation materials for the 5th time that morning, his small hands smoothing invisible wrinkles from his favorite navy sweater. He's not going to come, Liam announced suddenly, his voice tight with anxiety. Just like the ice cream. Before Dahlia could respond, Theo appeared in the doorway. Yes, he will, he said with absolute certainty. He promised. The twins stared at each other, having one of their silent conversations that Dahlia had never quite been able to decode. Finally, Liam nodded slightly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. At Tech Vision's Manhattan office, Larkin Hayes stood before his board of directors, his expression leaving no room for argument. The Tokyo merger can wait. I have a prior commitment that cannot be rescheduled. But the shareholders, one board member began, will understand that some things are more important than quarterly reports. Larkin's tone was final. My son is presenting his first major science project today. I will not miss it. The words felt right in his mouth. My son. He'd been practicing them, testing their weight, learning to wear them as naturally as his custom-made suits. Across the conference table, he caught a slight smile on his COO's face. Richard Bennett had known Larkin since their college days at MIT, had watched him build Tech Vision from the ground up. Now he watched his friend choose family over business for perhaps the first time in his life. The meeting is adjourned, Richard announced, gathering his papers. I believe we all have somewhere else to be. Larkin shot him a grateful look before hurrying out. He had exactly 47 minutes to make it to his son's school in Brooklyn. At PS 321, the gymnasium had been transformed into a science exhibition hall. Student projects lined the walls, proud parents already gathering despite the early hour. Dahlia helped Liam set up his display, noting how his hands shook slightly as he arranged his diagrams of black holes and gravitational fields. Mom, he whispered, adjusting his glasses, a gesture so like her own that it made her heart ache. What time is it? Still 30 minutes until your presentation, honey. She smoothed his hair. Plenty of time. Theo, who had been exploring the other exhibits, came running back. Joey's project exploded, well, kind of. The volcano thing went everywhere. The slight chaos of the failed volcano project provided a welcome distraction. Liam even smiled a little as Theo dramatically reenacted the eruption, complete with sound effects. 20 minutes until presentation time. Dahlia's phone remained silent. Should we practice one more time? She offered, but Liam shook his head. I just want... He trailed off, his eyes fixed on the gymnasium entrance. 15 minutes. Theo had stopped his dramatic reenactments, instead standing close to his twin, their shoulders touching in silent support. 10 minutes. The science teacher began gathering students into their presentation order. Liam would be third. 5 minutes. Dahlia felt her heart breaking as she watched her quiet, brilliant son try to hide his disappointment behind a mask of concentration. And then, sorry I'm late. Traffic was horrible, had to ditch the car and take the subway. Larkin burst through the gymnasium doors, slightly out of breath, his usually immaculate suit showing signs of his rushed journey. But he was there, his blue eyes immediately finding Liam's matching ones across the crowded space. Dad! Theo's excited shout drew attention from nearby parents, but Larkin didn't seem to notice. He was focused entirely on Liam, whose rigid posture had suddenly relaxed. I wouldn't miss this for anything, Larkin said softly, reaching them. Now tell me everything about these black holes. The transformation in Liam was immediate. As he began explaining his project to his father, his voice grew stronger, more confident. Larkin asked intelligent questions, showing genuine interest in every detail. "Ladies and gentlemen," the science teacher's voice carried over the crowd, "we're ready to begin our presentations." Liam's moment came all too quickly. As he stood before the gathered audience, his initial nervousness melted away as he caught sight of his family. Mom adjusting her glasses with pride, Theo giving him an enthusiastic thumbs up, and Dad leaning forward in his chair, completely engrossed. "A black hole," Liam began, his voice clear and steady, "is a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape its pull." As he continued his presentation, weaving complex concepts into understandable explanations, Dahlia felt tears prick at her eyes. Beside her, Larkin sat with an expression of absolute wonder, as if seeing their son, truly seeing him, for the first time. The applause when Liam finished was genuine and enthusiastic. Several teachers approached to compliment his clear explanation of complex physics, but Liam's eyes sought only his father's approval. Larkin seemed to struggle for words. "That was incredible, Liam. Absolutely incredible." The smile that broke across Liam's face was like sunshine after rain. "Can we get ice cream now?" Theo asked, breaking the moment in his characteristic way. "To celebrate?" "Ice cream sounds perfect," Larkin agreed. "And maybe we could stop by the office afterward? I have something I'd like to show you both." The visit to Tech Vision's headquarters was a revelation for everyone. Theo was immediately enchanted by the glass elevators, while Liam's eyes went wide at the wall of technology patents in the lobby. "This is all yours?" Theo asked, pressing his face against a window to see the city spread out below. "It is," Larkin acknowledged, "but it's not the most important thing anymore." He led them to his office, where two new additions stood out among the sleek corporate decor, framed photos of the twins that hadn't been there the day before. "I had them put up this morning," he explained, catching Dahlia's questioning look. "I want everyone to know about my sons." "Even the Tokyo people?" Liam asked quietly. "Especially them." Larkin knelt to his level. "I'm sorry about the other day. Sometimes I forget what really matters, but I'm learning. Will you help me learn?" Liam studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Black holes seem scary at first, too," he offered. "But once you understand them, they make sense." Dahlia watched the exchange with a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite name. Seeing Larkin with their sons in his corporate domain, choosing them over his empire, was healing something she hadn't realized was still broken. "Hey, Dad," Theo called from the window. "Could you make a game about black holes? Like a really cool one with spaceships and stuff?" "Actually," Larkin's eyes lit up, "that's not a bad idea. What if we worked on it together? Both of you. Liam could help with the science and Theo could design the gameplay." As the boys eagerly began brainstorming game ideas, Dahlia found herself remembering the young dreamer she'd fallen in love with in Boston. He was still there beneath the corporate exterior, still capable of that pure enthusiasm for creation and possibility. Her phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "How did it go?" Dahlia looked at her family. Larkin showing the boys how to use his computer's 3D modeling program, Theo bouncing with excitement, Liam's quiet focus as he explained event horizons to his father, and typed back, "He's learning, we all are." The afternoon sun painted Manhattan's skyline in shades of gold. But the real treasure was here in this office, watching a father and his sons begin to bridge the gap of 7 years with talk of black holes, video games, and possibilities. Some gravitational pulls Dahlia realized were impossible to escape. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad thing after all. 2 months had passed since the science exhibition, and autumn had fully embraced New York City. The Tech Vision office renovation was nearly complete, with Dahlia's design transforming the space into something both modern and welcoming. But it wasn't just the office that had undergone a transformation. "Dad's taking us to Boston this weekend," Theo announced over breakfast, his excitement palpable. "He says Grandma Eleanor's house has a huge backyard with trees perfect for climbing." Dahlia focused on pouring coffee, trying to hide her unease. The prospect of the twins visiting Boston, visiting the past she'd run from, stirred complicated emotions. "Mom?" Liam's observant eyes caught her tension. "Aren't you coming too?" "No, honey. This is your time with Dad and Grandma Eleanor." She managed to smile. "Besides, I have to oversee the final installations at Tech Vision." The truth was more complex. Boston held too many memories, too many what-ifs. The colonial house in Beacon Hill where she'd first met Larkin at a charity gala. The MIT campus where they'd spent countless evenings planning their future. The small cafe where she'd first suspected she was pregnant, watching early morning snow fall outside the window. Her phone buzzed with a text from Larkin. Car service will pick up the boys at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Mother's already planning a weekend of spoiling them rotten. The past 2 months had seen Larkin fully embrace fatherhood. He'd rearranged his schedule to make time for school pickups, helped with homework, and even coached Theo's weekend soccer team. The walls of his office now displayed not just the twins' photos, but their artwork and school achievements as well. But something else had been growing too, something neither Dahlia nor Larkin acknowledged. The old chemistry between them hadn't died. It had just been dormant, waiting for the right moment to reawaken. Ms. Monroe? Her assistant's voice interrupted her thoughts. Mr. Hayes would like to see you in the conference room about the design changes. Dahlia found Larkin studying the newly installed lighting fixtures, his reflection multiplied in the floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned as she entered, and for a moment she caught an unguarded expression on his face, one that made her heart skip. "The place looks amazing," he said softly. "You've outdone yourself. Thank you." She moved to adjust her glasses, but his hand caught hers before she could complete the nervous gesture. "Don't," he murmured. "You always do that when you're uncomfortable. Talk to me, Dahlia. What's really bothering you about this weekend?" She pulled her hand away gently. "It's not about the weekend, not really." "Then what?" "This." She gestured between them. "Us. The way we're falling into old patterns without addressing what happened." Larkin ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it ached. "I thought we were focusing on the boys." "We are, but they're not blind, Larkin. Especially Liam. He sees everything, analyzes everything. And what does he see?" Before she could answer, the conference room door opened. Richard Bennett stood there, his expression grave. "Larkin, we have a problem. The Tokyo merger. There's been a leak. The press is having a field day." The transformation was immediate. CEO Larkin Hayes snapped into place, all traces of personal vulnerability vanishing. "How bad?" "Bad enough that the board's calling for an emergency meeting in Boston this weekend." Dahlia's heart sank, already anticipating what was coming. But Larkin surprised her. "No," he said firmly. "I promised my sons a weekend with their grandmother. The board can wait until Monday." "Larkin," Richard's voice was gentle but insistent. "We're talking potential stock crashes, investor panic. This can't wait. Then set up a video conference. I'll handle it from Boston. The board wants everyone there in person. You know how old Richardson gets about these things." Dahlia watched the internal struggle play out on Larkin's face. It was the same battle she'd feared 7 years ago. Business versus family, success versus love. "I'll tell the boys," she offered quietly. "They'll understand." "No." Larkin's voice was sharp. "No, I'll tell them. In person. Tonight." Hours later, Dahlia sat on their living room couch, listening as Larkin tried to explain to the twins why their Boston trip needed to be postponed. "But you promised." Theo's voice cracked with disappointment. "You said nothing would get in the way this time." "I know, buddy. And I'm sorry. But this is a real emergency." "Like the ice cream?" Liam's quiet interjection cut deeper than Theo's outburst. "Or my black hole presentation?" "No, Liam. I was there for your presentation. Remember? I'll make this up to you both, I swear." "When?" Theo demanded. "When you're not too busy being important?" Larkin flinched as if struck. "That's not fair. You know how much I want to—" "Know what?" Liam stood suddenly, his small frame vibrating with unexpected anger. "That your company matters more? We already knew that. Mom left because of it, didn't she?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Dahlia felt her breath catch, seeing the shock on Larkin's face, the tears in Theo's eyes, the trembling in Liam's hands. "Is that what you think?" Larkin asked softly. "That Mom left because of my work? Isn't it true?" Liam's voice was barely a whisper now. "She said you were focused on your dreams. That's why she never told you about us." The truth, laid bare by a 7-year-old's perception, struck them all silent. Dahlia moved to comfort her son, but Larkin got there first, kneeling before both boys. "Listen to me, both of you. Yes, I was focused on my dreams back then. Too focused. But dreams change. People change. And right now, my biggest dream is being the father you deserve." "Even bigger than Tokyo?" Theo asked skeptically. "Even bigger than Tokyo." Larkin pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "In fact, Richard, tell the board I'm not coming. Family emergency. Non-negotiable." The twins exchanged glances, their silent communication at work again. Finally, Liam spoke. "What about the company? The company will survive. Larkin's voice was firm. But I won't survive losing you both again. Not now that I know you exist. Now that I love you. The word love, spoken for the first time, seemed to shift something in the room's atmosphere. Theo launched himself at his father, while Liam moved more slowly but just as surely into the embrace. Dahlia watched the scene unfold, her own eyes filling with tears. 7 years ago, she'd made a choice based on who Larkin was then. But people did change. Dreams did evolve. "Mom," Theo called out. "Come here." As she joined their group hug, Dahlia felt Larkin's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, while inside, a family continued their journey of healing, understanding, and love. But in the back of her mind, a small voice wondered, could anyone really change completely? Or would history find a way to repeat itself when they least expected it? The answer to that question would come sooner than any of them anticipated. The autumn wind whipped through Boston streets carrying golden leaves past the windows of Eleanor Hayes's Beacon Hill home. Inside, Dahlia stood in the familiar kitchen where she'd once spent countless evenings, watching as her sons helped their grandmother bake chocolate chip cookies. "Just like your father used to do," Eleanor commented, showing Theo how to properly space the dough on the baking sheet, though he was less interested in the baking and more in the eating. The impromptu trip to Boston had been Larkin's idea. After choosing the boys over the Tokyo merger, he'd decided they all needed a fresh start, a chance to confront the past and build something new. "Mom," Liam called from the living room. "Come look at what Dad found." She followed his voice to find Larkin and Liam poring over old photo albums. One particular photo caught her eye, a much younger version of herself and Larkin at an MIT fundraiser, both laughing at something now forgotten. "You looked so happy," Liam observed, his eyes moving between the photo and his parents' faces. "We were," Dahlia admitted softly. "Sometimes happiness just needs time to find its way back." The weekend had been full of such moments, discoveries, revelations, and healing. Eleanor had transformed her formal dining room into a makeshift game development studio, where Larkin worked with the boys on their black hole game concept. The back garden had become Theo's personal adventure playground, while the library offered Liam endless treasures to explore. But it was the quiet moments that meant the most. Watching Larkin teach the boys how to play chess on his father's old set. Seeing Eleanor show Liam her herb garden, sharing secrets about growing the perfect basil. Hearing Theo's laughter echo through the halls that had once seemed so austere. "The cookies are ready." Eleanor's announcement brought everyone to the kitchen. As they gathered around the island, sampling warm cookies and cold milk, Dahlia felt something shift in her heart. "I have an announcement," Larkin said suddenly, setting down his cookie. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about the future, about what really matters." All eyes turned to him, even Theo pausing mid-bite. "I'm stepping down as CEO of Tech Vision." The silence that followed was profound. Dahlia felt her heart skip a beat, remembering all the dreams he'd once shared about building his empire. "But your company," she started, "will be in good hands. Richard's been ready for this for years." Larkin smiled, reaching for her hand. "I'm not leaving completely. I'll stay on the board, focus on special projects. But I want to be there for soccer games and science fairs. I want to help develop that black hole game with my sons. I want—" He paused, pulling something from his pocket. Dahlia's breath caught as she recognized the small velvet box she'd last seen 7 years ago. "I want to do everything right this time," he continued, opening the box to reveal her old engagement ring. "If you'll let me." "Dad?" Theo's voice was uncertain. "Are you asking Mom to marry you again?" "Yes," Larkin answered, his eyes never leaving Dahlia's face. "Because sometimes the best dreams are the ones that take time to come true." Liam moved closer to his mother, studying her expression. "Is this why you were crying last night, because you knew?" Dahlia shook her head, tears forming despite her smile. "No, honey, I had no idea." "Well?" Eleanor prompted, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "Don't keep us in suspense." Instead of answering immediately, Dahlia looked at her sons. "What do you think? Should we give your dad another chance?" The twins exchanged one of their silent looks before Theo burst out, "Yes. Can I be the ring bearer? I promise not to lose it this time." "This time?" Larkin raised an eyebrow. "He lost my friendship bracelet last week," Liam explained solemnly. "But I forgave him because that's what family does." The simple wisdom in those words seemed to touch something deep in all of them. Dahlia found herself nodding, tears flowing freely now as Larkin slipped the ring back onto her finger where it had always belonged. Does this mean we're moving to Boston? Theo asked excitedly. No, sweetheart, Eleanor answered. But it means I'll have more excuses to visit New York. And it means, Larkin added, gathering both boys close, that we're officially what we've always been meant to be, a family. Later that evening, after the boys had fallen asleep in their father's old room, Dahlia found Larkin in his father's study. He stood by the window, holding a framed photo of his parents on their wedding day. Having second thoughts? She asked softly. He turned, smiling. About us? Never. About not telling the board in person? Maybe a little. The great Larkin Hayes choosing FaceTime over boardroom drama? Who are you and what have you done with my fiancé? His laugh was warm as he pulled her close. I'm the man I should have been 7 years ago. The man who knows that success means nothing without the right people to share it with. We can't change the past, she reminded him, echoing words they'd both said before. No, but we can learn from it. Build something better. He gestured to a sketch on the desk, the boys' initial design for their black hole game. Look what we've already created together. Through the open door, they could hear the twins' soft breathing from upstairs, punctuated by Theo's occasional sleep-talking about superheroes, the sounds of their family together at last. You know, Dahlia said thoughtfully, I always wondered why I kept your mother's number all these years. Some part of me must have known we'd find our way back here. Like a black hole's gravitational pull, Larkin teased, referencing Liam's favorite subject. More like destiny. Eleanor's voice came from the doorway. She held up a shoebox filled with old photographs. I found these in the attic, pictures of Larkin at the boy's age. The resemblance is uncanny. As they sat together, sorting through memories both old and new, Dahlia felt the last pieces of her heart's puzzle falling into place. 7 years ago, she'd run from this house carrying the secret of new life within her. Now she was back, not as the young woman afraid of competing with dreams too big to share, but as a mother, a designer, a woman who knew her own worth. Mom, Liam's sleepy voice called from the stairs. Can you tell us a story? Soon they were all gathered in the boys' room. Theo and Liam snuggled together in the large bed, Eleanor in the old rocking chair, Larkin and Dahlia sitting close together on the window seat. Tell us how you and Dad met, Theo requested, fighting sleep. Well, Dahlia began, catching Larkin's eye. It's a story about dreams and time and finding your way home. Outside, Boston's lights twinkled like stars, while inside, a family that had once been fragmented by fear and ambition was finally whole. Their story wasn't perfect. No real story is, but it was theirs, with all its twists and turns, its losses and discoveries, its lessons learned and love rekindled. Sometimes the longest journeys lead you right back where you were meant to be all along. And sometimes, just sometimes, second chances turn out to be even better than first dreams. I love you, Larkin whispered as their sons drifted off to sleep, the words carrying 7 years' worth of waiting, of growing, of understanding what truly mattered. I love you too, Dahlia replied, her hand finding his in the darkness. All of you. And in that moment, in that house on Beacon Hill, with autumn leaves dancing past the windows and love filling every corner, their story came full circle, not ending, but beginning anew. The end. 1 year later, spring sunshine streamed through the windows of their Brooklyn brownstone, casting warm patterns across the hardwood floors. In the home office, now converted into a combination workspace and gaming studio, Theo and Liam sat with their father, testing the latest version of their black hole game. The gravitational physics is perfect now, Liam declared, adjusting his glasses in a gesture identical to his mother's. At 8 years old, he'd become the project's unofficial science consultant. But we need more explosions, Theo added, his enthusiasm for special effects unchanged by time. And maybe some alien spaceships? Larkin laughed, making notes on his tablet. Let's finish this version first. We want to have it ready for the Science Education Conference next month. The game, Event Horizon Adventures, had evolved from a simple father-son's project into TechVision's first educational gaming initiative. Larkin's new role as head of innovation allowed him to focus on projects that mattered, especially those that combined his son's diverse interests. Dinner's ready, Dahlia's voice called from downstairs. And Grandma Eleanor's on FaceTime. The kitchen island was laden with plates of homemade mac and cheese, still the family favorite, while Eleanor's smiling face beamed from the tablet propped against the fruit bowl. She visited monthly now, but technology kept her connected between trips. How's the wedding planning coming along? She asked, watching as her family settled around the table. Dahlia glanced at the simple gold band that had joined her engagement ring. They'd married 6 months ago in a small ceremony in their backyard. with the twins sharing best man duties. The real celebration would be their upcoming vow renewal, a larger event that Eleanor was helping to plan. Everything's on schedule, Dahlia assured her, though Theo's still campaigning for a superhero dress code. Only for the kids' table, Theo defended, shooting a grin at his brother. I still think a space theme would be more elegant, Liam muttered, but his eyes sparkled with amusement. After dinner, as the boys worked on homework and Eleanor said her goodbyes, Dahlia found Larkin in their living room. He stood before the wall of family photos, some old, some new, all telling the story of their journey. Any regrets? She asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Only that we lost 7 years, he replied, turning to face her. But maybe we needed that time, to grow, to become who we needed to be for them, for each other. From upstairs came the sound of the twins' playful bickering, followed by laughter. Their voices, so different yet harmonious, filled the house with life and love. Mom, Dad, Theo called down. Can we show you our science project? We're building a model of the solar system, but with superheroes protecting each planet. That's not scientifically accurate. They heard Liam sigh, though his tone was affectionate. Dahlia and Larkin exchanged smiles, recognizing in their son's collaboration a perfect balance of imagination and precision, of dreams and reality, a reflection of their own completed puzzle. Coming, they called in unison, heading upstairs together, toward their future one step at a time. Sometimes love isn't about getting everything right the first time. Sometimes it's about finding your way back, about second chances and new beginnings, about building something stronger from the pieces of what was broken. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about realizing that your greatest dreams were waiting for you all along, disguised as challenges, wrapped in the laughter of 2 blue-eyed boys who inherited their father's determination and their mother's heart. This wasn't an ending. It was simply another beautiful beginning. The end. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.